My life used to be neat. That's the only word for it. Not exciting, not glamorous, just neat. Everything had its place. My keys went into the small ceramic bowl by the door, the one I bought at a street fair. My coat went on the third hook from the left. My work shoes lined up perfectly with my casual shoes in the closet. It was a kind of quiet satisfaction, I guess. The kind you get from knowing you have control over your own small corner of the world. My apartment on the 12th floor was my sanctuary. It was modern. All clean lines and big windows that looked out over the city. At night, the whole place would be bathed in the glow of 1,000 distant lights, and it felt like being in a spaceship, safe and detached from everything down below. My only roommate was Jasper, a ridiculously fluffy ginger cat who thought he owned the place, and, to be fair, he kinda did. The thing is, my life was built on these little routines. Wake up, feed Jasper, coffee, work, home, feed Jasper again, maybe watch a show, sleep. Weekends were for laundry, groceries, and maybe a quiet drink with my friend Anna. It was predictable, it was safe. And a big part of that feeling of safety, ironically, came from the internet. My social media was my curated little scrapbook. Pictures of Jasper in a sunbeam, a particularly good latte I'd made, the sunset from my balcony. It was a highlight reel, sure, but it was my highlight reel. A place where I could connect with friends who'd moved away, share a funny meme, and feel like I was part of something without ever having to leave the comfort of my perfectly arranged living room. So, that Tuesday started like any other Tuesday. I got home from the office, did the key in the bowl ritual, and was immediately met by Jasper, who was weaving between my legs and meowing like he hadn't been fed in a decade. I, of course, caved instantly. As I filled his bowl, one scrolled through my phone. The usual stuff. Emails from work I'd ignore until morning, a notification that my package had been delivered. A few likes on yesterday's sunset picture. I decided the world needed to see Jasper's latest conquest. He discovered the cardboard box from my new desk lamp and had claimed it as his personal fortress. He was peeking out from a hole he'd chewed in the side, one eye visible, looking like a furry little pirate. It was adorable. I snapped a picture, typed up a quick caption, "All hail King Jasper of the Cardboard Kingdom," and posted it. Within minutes, the likes started trickling in. A heart from my mom, a laughing emoji from a coworker, then a comment from Anna. "He's plotting world domination from there. I can see it in his eye." I smiled, tapping out a reply. It was all so normal, so harmless. I was making myself a cup of tea when my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a notification, but a direct message from Anna. "Anna, hey, you made a new account? Weird username lol." I frowned. A new account? I hadn't made a new account. I've had the same username since college. Backquote. Chloe.Hansen, backquote. Simple. Easy. Me. What? No. What are you talking about? Anna. This one. It just followed me. She sent a screenshot. My breath caught in my throat for just a second. The profile picture was me. It was the one I'd taken just last month, with Jasper perched on my shoulder, his fur tickling my cheek. It was a good picture. I looked happy. The username was backquote, Chloe_Hansen, backquote. Just one tiny difference. A period switched to an underscore. My first feeling wasn't fear, it was annoyance. A deep, profound irritation. It was like seeing someone had parked their car just slightly over the line, taking up 2 spaces. It was just wrong. Me. That's not me. That's so weird. Some kind of spam bot? B. Anna. Maybe? It's a good one if it is. It looks exactly like your page. I clicked on the profile from the screenshot Anna sent. And she was right. It wasn't just the profile picture. It was everything. The bio was identical, word for word. Cat lover, coffee addict, and a sucker for rainy afternoons. The header image was the exact same shot of the skyline at sunset, taken from my balcony. My balcony. I started scrolling down the feed of this other me. My heart started to beat a little faster, a low, thudding rhythm in my chest. It was a mirror. A perfect, digital reflection. There was my 25th birthday post from 2 years ago. The picture of me and my friends with cake on our faces. There was the shot of my first attempt at baking sourdough bread, a glorious failure. There was the picture of my new bookshelf, every book arranged by color, a project that had taken me an entire Saturday. It was all there. Every post, every memory I'd chosen to share, copied and pasted into this wrong place. It was like finding a diary I'd never written. The dates were all the same. The captions were identical. It was a meticulous, flawless replica. My entire online life, stolen and put on display under a slightly different name. A cold feeling started to creep up my spine. Who would do this, and why? It had to be a bot, right? Some sophisticated program that scrapes profiles and duplicates them for some reason. Phishing, maybe. That had to be it. It was the only explanation that made any sense. It was impersonal. It wasn't about me, Chloe Hansen. It was about data. It's just spam, I said out loud to the empty room. Jasper looked up from his box, blinked slowly, and then went back to ignoring me. Saying it out loud helped. A little. It put the thing back in a box I could understand. This wasn't a person with a motive. It was just a glitch in the machine, a piece of junk code floating around in the ether. And there was a button for that. My finger hovered over the 3 little dots in the corner of the fake profile. Report. I tapped it. Why are you reporting this account? The app asked. I selected, it's pretending to be me or someone I know. Who is it pretending to be? Me. The app prompted me to provide the username of my actual account as proof. I typed in Chloe.Hansen. Thank you for your report, the screen read. We'll review the account and take action if it violates our community standards. There, done. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was handled. The algorithm would see the duplicate, see that it was obviously a fake, and delete it. By morning, it would be gone. The small disruption to my neat, orderly world would be smoothed over. I blocked the account for good measure and tried to put it out of my mind. I made my tea, sat on the couch and turned on the TV, forcing myself to get invested in some mindless reality show. But the image of that duplicate profile was burned into my brain. The same smile, the same cat, the same life, but with a single underscore changing everything. It felt like a smudge on a clean window, a detail that was impossible to ignore once you'd seen it. I kept picking up my phone, my thumb hovering over the app, wanting to check if it was gone yet. I resisted. Give it time, I told myself. These things take time. A few hours passed. The city outside my window was a glittering tapestry of light. Jasper had abandoned his box and was curled up asleep at my feet. The reality show was droning on. Everything was back to normal. Or it should have been. I still felt a lingering sense of unease, a low hum of anxiety beneath the surface. My phone, sitting face down on the cushion next to me, buzzed. I picked it up. It was a notification from the social media app. For a second, I felt a wave of relief. They must have deleted the account already. That was fast. But it wasn't a confirmation that the account had been taken down. It was a response to my report. I tapped it, and the message filled my screen. We have reviewed your report of Chloe_Hansen for impersonation. After reviewing the account, we have found that it does not violate our community standards. I stared at the message on the screen. Does not violate our community standards. I read it again, then a third time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. They didn't. My report, my logical, reasonable request to remove a profile that was an exact copy of me, had been dismissed by an algorithm. Just like that. A sterile, digital rejection. For a moment, I just sat there in the quiet of my own living room, the blue light of the phone painting my face. It felt absurd, like calling 911 because your house is on fire and being put on hold. My first coherent thought was, okay, fine, it's a bug. The system is overloaded. It made a mistake. I'll report it again in the morning. I put the phone face down on the couch, took a deep breath, and told myself to just let it go for the night. This was a digital problem, a ghost in the machine. It couldn't hurt me. The real world, my world, was these 4 walls, my cat purring at my feet, the hum of the fridge. Solid, real, the neat, orderly life I'd built. I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up, my heart pounding for no reason, the ghost of that duplicate profile lingering behind my eyelids. Every time I reached for my phone, a small, cold knot of dread tightened in my stomach. By morning, after a night of tossing and turning, the knot had grown into a solid lump of anxiety. I went through my morning routine on autopilot. Feed Jasper. Coffee. Shower. As I was getting dressed for work, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new notification. My hand hesitated before I picked it up. It wasn't a message or an email. It was a post notification. From that account. Backquote. Chloe_Hansen, backquote, had posted a new photo. My thumb, acting of its own accord, tapped the notification. The picture loaded. It was me. Or, the thing that looked like me. It was sitting at a sun-drenched corner of a bookstore cafe, a place I recognized from other people's posts but had never actually been to. It was called The Reading Nook, a cozy, popular spot clear across town. In the photo, I was smiling, a genuine, radiant smile, a half-read book open on the table, and a latte with perfect foam art beside it. Sunlight was catching the highlights in my hair. It was a beautiful photo. A perfect, happy, completely fabricated moment. I felt a wave of nausea. This was different. This wasn't just copying my past. This was inventing a present for me. A better, more interesting present than my actual one, which currently consisted of me standing in my bedroom in my underwear, staring at a phone screen in horror. Then the comments started to appear. Anna was first. OMG, you went to the Reading Nook without me? Traitor, winking face. A coworker, Mark, looks so chill. I need a day like that. Let me know if the coffee is as good as it looks. My cousin from Seattle. You look so happy, Chloe, glowing. My fingers felt numb as I tried to type a reply. What was I supposed to say? I started with Anna. That's not me, it's that fake account I told you about. Her reply came back instantly. Lol, sorry it is. Playing mysterious now, are we? Winking face. I tried again, posting a public comment under the photo for everyone to see. Hey everyone, this is a fake account. I don't know who's running it, but this isn't me. Please report it. The only reply I got was a laughing emoji from someone I barely knew from college. No one believed me. To them, it was just a picture of me, Chloe, having a nice Tuesday morning. My denial just seemed weird. Paranoid. Maybe even a little bit of a humble brag, like I was pretending it wasn't me in a good photo. I felt my grip on the situation slipping. How do you convince people of a truth that is less plausible than the lie? I blocked the account. I reported it again. I sent a frantic, rambling email to the support center explaining the situation in detail. I got an automated reply saying they would look into my query within 3 to 5 business days. 3 to 5 days. It felt like an eternity. The rest of the day was a blur of distracted anxiety. At work, I couldn't focus. I kept staring at my computer screen, but my mind was elsewhere. I was picturing that thing. That copy of me. What was it doing now? Was it at lunch with friends I didn't have? Was it taking a walk in a park I'd never visited? I felt a strange and horrible kind of envy. The fake me was having a better day than the real me. That evening I got home and immediately checked my phone. The profile was still there. And it had posted again. This time the photo sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with envy. It was a picture of me, walking through a park at dusk. The city lights were just starting to twinkle in the background. I was wearing an elegant, dark red dress. It was a beautiful dress, the kind you wear to a fancy dinner or a gallery opening. I don't own a red dress. I have never owned a red dress. My wardrobe is a practical, sensible collection of blues, grays, and blacks. Red wasn't my color. But it wasn't just the dress. It was the face. At first glance, it looked like me. But the longer I stared, the more wrong it felt. The smile from the cafe photo was gone. In its place was a placid, almost blank expression. The eyes seemed to look right through the camera, focused on nothing. There was a vacancy there, a hollowness that made my own reflection in the dark screen of my phone seem more real. It was like looking at a beautifully crafted mannequin that had been given my face. The caption under the photo was simple. A quiet walk to clear my head. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a game anymore. This wasn't a bot. A bot copies. A bot doesn't create. It doesn't pick out a dress and go for a walk in the park. This was a person who was meticulously building a life for me, a life that ran parallel to my own but was infinitely more strange. I did the only thing I could think of. I sent a direct message to backquote, Chloe_Hansen backquote. My fingers shook as I typed. Me. Who are you? Me. What do you want? Me. Please. Just stop this. This isn't funny. I stared at the screen, waiting. The message status switched to seen. My heart leaped into my throat. It saw it. The person was there, right now, looking at my message. I waited for the 3 little dots to appear, for a reply to type itself out. An explanation, a demand, an insult, anything, but nothing came. Just silence. The cold, absolute silence of being deliberately ignored. It was more terrifying than any response could have been. The silence felt like a statement. It said, I see you, but you don't matter. That night, sleep was out of the question. I lay in bed, the city lights outside my window offering no comfort. I kept my phone in my hand, my thumb compulsively swiping down, refreshing the fake profile, even though I knew I shouldn't. It was a form of self-torture. I went back through my own feed, my actual life, my Chloe.Hansen with the period. I looked at the pictures I had posted. Me on my birthday, cake on my face, my failed sourdough bread, my color-coded bookshelf. And a new, horrifying thought began to form in my mind. The photos on the fake profile looked so real, impossibly real. The lighting, the focus, the shadows. What if they were real? What if I was the one who was wrong? I stared at a picture of myself on a hike from last summer, a wide, genuine grin on my face. Was that me? The memory felt hazy, distant. Did I really feel that happy, or was I just remembering the photo? The line between my life and the fake life was blurring. I was looking in a mirror, and the reflection was starting to feel more solid than I was. I must have drifted into a shallow, uneasy sleep at some point, because the next thing I knew, my phone buzzed on the bedspread next to my head. It was 3 a.m. The notification glowed in the darkness. It wasn't a new post, it was a story. A short, temporary video. My heart hammered against my ribs. Stories felt more immediate, more real-time. I tapped on the little green circle. The video started. There was no sound. The camera was shaky, handheld. It was filming a close-up of a hand that looked exactly like mine, down to the small, pale scar on my index finger from a kitchen knife accident years ago. The hand was slowly, gently stroking the back of a cat. A fluffy ginger cat. A cat that looked exactly like Jasper. I sat bolt upright in bed, my blood turning to ice. My own Jasper was asleep at the foot of my bed, a motionless lump under the blanket. I could feel his weight on my legs. I forced my eyes back to the screen. The hand in the video kept stroking the cat. The cat was purring, its body vibrating with contentment. It was Jasper. It had to be. But then I saw it. A tiny detail, almost unnoticeable. The collar. The cat in the video was wearing a bright blue collar. Jasper's collar was red. It had been red for the 2 years I'd had him. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the impossible. Was this an old video? Had he ever had a blue collar? No. Never. Then, white text appeared on the screen, typed over the video of the hand stroking the cat. 6 simple, devastating words. My best friend. I stayed like that for a long time, just sitting straight up in the dark, my phone screen the only light in the room. The video had finished. It was just a black screen with the account name Chloe_Hansen at the top. My thumb was hovering over the back button, but I couldn't move it. It was like my whole nervous system had short-circuited. I could feel Jasper's solid, warm weight on my legs, the faint vibration of his real, actual purr coming through the duvet. My cat was here. He was safe. His collar was red. I had checked it just last night before bed. A new, nervous habit. It was red. But I had just seen him. With a blue collar. Being petted by my hand. My brain was trying to find a logical explanation, scrambling for anything that would make the world right itself again. It's an old video. But I'd never bought him a blue collar. It's a different cat that looks just like him. But the scar on the hand, that was my scar. I got it when I was 19, trying to slice a frozen bagel. It was a stupid small white line, but it was mine. It's a deepfake. That's what it is. A sophisticated, insane, deepfake video. Someone out there hated me enough to spend hours creating a fake video of my hand petting a different ginger cat just to mess with me. That had to be it. It was a crazy explanation, but it was the only one that wasn't impossible. I forced myself to lie back down, but I didn't turn the phone off. I just placed it, screen up, on my chest. Every few minutes, my thumb would unlock it, and I'd stare at the blank profile of Chloe_Hansen, waiting for a new post, a new story, a new piece of my life to be stolen and twisted. Nothing came. The silence was worse. The anticipation was a physical thing, a sickness in the pit of my stomach. I didn't sleep again. I just watched the black of my bedroom ceiling slowly turn to gray, then to the pale, washed-out light of early morning. Getting ready for work felt like operating a robot. My movements were jerky and disconnected. Shower. Brush teeth. Stare at my own face in the mirror and wonder if it was really mine. Jasper threaded himself around my legs, meowing for his breakfast. I flinched when he brushed against me. I bent down and stroked his back, my eyes fixed on his red collar. It was so red. The color felt loud and aggressive in the quiet of my apartment. He purred, the sound a deep rumble against my fingers. It didn't comfort me. It just reminded me of the video, of the other cat. The other me. My phone rang as I was pouring coffee. I knew I wouldn't be able to drink. It was Anna. I stared at her name on the screen, a fresh wave of anxiety washing over me. I hadn't known how to tell her about the video. The red dress picture was one thing, but this felt too insane. I was scared she'd think I was losing my mind. I finally answered, trying to sound normal. "Hey," I said, my voice hoarse. "Chloe, are you okay? You sound weird." "Yeah, just long night." It wasn't a lie. "Okay, well look, this is gonna sound strange," she started, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "But did you text me late last night? Like really late?" The coffee mug slipped in my hand, splashing hot liquid over the counter. "What? No, Anna? What did it say?" "Whoa, okay, calm down. It wasn't anything bad, just odd." There was a pause, the sound of her swiping on her phone. "Okay, so you're, the other you, Chloe_Hansen, messaged me. Started out normal, asked how I was, how my mom was doing. It even asked about that stupid project at work, the one I ranted to you about." I felt my legs go weak. I sank onto one of the kitchen stools. "It knows about your project?" "Yeah." That's what was so convincing. It sounded exactly like you. We were just chatting, but then the questions got weird. "Weird how, Anna?" I was whispering now. "Just tell me." Okay. It was asking about you, like it didn't know things it should know. It said something like, "Anna, you know how Chloe can be, a little forgetful sometimes. Is she good about locking her door when she gets home? The main one." The air left my lungs in a silent rush. I couldn't speak. The sounds of my own kitchen, the hum of the fridge, the drip of the faucet, suddenly felt alien and threatening. "Chloe? You still there?" I managed a choked sound. "Yeah." "And then," Anna continued, her voice lowering, sharing a secret, "it asked about your bedroom." "My bedroom?" The words came out brittle. "Yeah." It said, and I'm reading this verbatim now, it said, "I was thinking of stopping by to surprise her sometime soon. You think she keeps her bedroom window locked? Her balcony looks kinda low from the pictures she posts." I dropped my phone. It clattered onto the linoleum floor. I didn't even register the sound. All I could hear was that sentence echoing in my head. Her balcony looks kinda low. I've never posted a picture of my balcony. Not one. I've posted pictures from inside my living room where you can see the city through the balcony door, but never the balcony itself. Never from an angle that would let you judge how low it was. To know how low it was, you'd have to be standing down on the street. Looking up, I scrambled to pick up the phone, my hands shaking violently. "Anna," I gasped, pressing the phone hard against my ear. "Anna, you have to believe me. That is not me. That thing is not me." "Okay, Chloe. Wow, I believe you. I do. Hearing you now. God, I'm so sorry. I totally blew you off before. I just thought it was some weird prank. But it's watching me, Anna. It's watching my apartment. What do you want me to do?" Her voice was tight with fear now. Real fear. She finally understood. "Send me the screenshots. Send them to my real account. Chloe.Hansen, with the period. And then block it. Block it and report it and just don't talk to it ever again." Oh God. "Okay, I'm sending them now." We hung up. A second later, my phone buzzed with the incoming messages. I opened them, my heart hammering against my ribs. There they were. The blue message bubbles of Chloe_Hansen, and the gray bubbles of my best friend. The casual opener. The questions about her mom. And then the final, chilling inquiries. Is she good about locking her door? My craze, you think she keeps her bedroom window locked? ECA. Seeing the words written down, in black and white, made it 100 times worse. It was a plan. A reconnaissance mission. This wasn't about imitation anymore. It wasn't about creating a parallel life online. This was about finding a way into my life. Into my home. I called my office and left a barely coherent message about being sick. There was no way I could work. There was no way I could even leave my apartment. Leaving felt like surrender. It felt like leaving the door wide open for whatever was coming next. The rest of the day was a new kind of hell. A quiet, paranoid, suffocating hell. The first thing I did was check every single lock in the apartment. The deadbolt on the front door. I twisted it back and forth 3 times, just to be sure. The flimsy lock on the sliding glass door to the balcony. I shoved a wooden dowel into the track, something my dad had always told me to do. It felt pathetically inadequate. Then I went to the bedroom window, the one it asked about. It was a standard double-hung window, leading out onto a tiny, useless Juliet balcony, barely big enough for a flower pot. Below it was a 4-story drop to the building's private courtyard. It wasn't low at all. Unless you weren't thinking of coming up from the ground. Unless you were thinking of coming from somewhere else. Another balcony. The roof. I locked the window. Then I closed the thick blackout curtains, plunging the room into darkness. I did the same in the living room. My safe, airy, light-filled apartment was now a dark, stuffy cave. But it felt safer. Every noise from the hallway made me jump. The ding of the elevator. The sound of footsteps. The neighbor's door closing. I spent at least an hour with my eye pressed to the peephole, watching the distorted figures of my neighbors come and go. A woman walking her dog. A delivery guy with a pizza. A couple arguing. They were all just living their normal lives, completely oblivious to the fact that I was trapped in mine, held hostage by a ghost on the internet. I felt completely, utterly alone. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? Hello, officer? Someone made a fake Instagram profile of me and is asking my friend if I lock my windows. They'd tell me to block the account and log off, just like the automated system had. They'd think I was a hysterical woman overreacting to a prank. I couldn't risk not being believed. Not again. I spent the afternoon compulsively checking my own social media. I went through years of posts, my finger scrolling backward in time, scrutinizing every photo, every caption. Was there a clue here? A reflection in a window? A street sign in the background? Anything that I might have posted that gave away too much. I was looking for the mistake I had made, the piece of information I had carelessly thrown out into the world that was now being used to hunt me. But there was nothing. I was careful. I was private. Or so I had thought. My paranoia was a living thing now, a creature whispering in my ear. It told me the person a few floors up, the one whose music was bleeding faintly through my ceiling, was listening to me. It told me the man I saw through the peephole was watching my door. It told me the camera in my laptop was on, that someone was seeing me right now, huddled in the dark. I taped over it with a piece of electrical tape. The sun went down. The darkness outside my curtains was now absolute. I had all the lights in the apartment on, but it didn't feel bright. It felt harsh and artificial, casting long, dancing shadows in every corner. I was sitting on the floor in my living room, my back against the sofa, holding my phone like a talisman. I hadn't heard from Anna since she sent the screenshots. I hadn't heard from anyone. The silence was stretching my nerves to their breaking point. Then, just after 9 p.m., my phone buzzed on the floor beside me. I snatched it up so fast I almost dropped it again. A new message from Anna. My fingers were slick with sweat as I unlocked the screen. It wasn't a long message, just 2 lines. My eyes scanned the first one. Anna. Oh my God. Chloe, it just messaged me again. My breath hitched. I read the second line. The message from my copy. The message it sent after Anna had gone silent for hours, after it had been left with its questions hanging in the air. A follow-up. It said, "Thanks for letting me know. I just wanted to make sure I'm safe." I read it again, and again. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that was so profound, it felt like my heart had been replaced with a block of ice. It wasn't a typo. It wasn't a mistake. It was a correction, a clarification. It had stopped pretending to be me asking about a third person, about her. In that one single message, the mask had slipped. It wasn't asking about my safety. It was asking about its own. The thing that was coming for me, the thing that was building a life in my skin, had referred to itself, its own well-being, its own security, as if it was already the real one, and I was just the loose end that needed to be tied up. The words just bounced around in my skull. I'm safe. Not is she safe. I'm safe. It was like a Freudian slip from a psychopath. I kept reading the screenshot Anna had sent, my thumb swiping back and forth between her panicked message and the screenshot itself. The calm, blue bubble of text sat there on my screen, a declaration of intent. It had stopped pretending to be me looking out for myself. It was now itself, looking out for its own well-being as it closed in, an apex predator checking the weather before a hunt. I don't know how long I sat on the floor, just staring at the phone. Time had stopped making sense. The quiet of my apartment, which I used to love, was now a hostile, roaring silence. Every low hum from the refrigerator, every creak of the building settling, every distant siren from the city streets below felt like a specific and personal threat. I felt like the star of a show I never auditioned for, and the audience was one person. And they were getting closer. Finally, a jolt of pure, animal adrenaline shot through me. I scrambled to my feet, my legs unsteady. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here and wait for it. Wait for what? I didn't know, and that was the worst part. My first coherent thought was, locks. Again. I went to the front door, my hand trembling as I reached for the deadbolt. I had already locked it. I knew I had, but I checked it anyway. I twisted the knob back and forth. Locked. Unlocked. Locked. The solid clunk of the bolt shooting into the frame was the only reassuring sound in the world. I checked the chain. It was on. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door, taking a deep, shaky breath that did nothing to calm the frantic hummingbird pulse in my throat. Then, the living room. The sliding glass door to the balcony. I stared at the flimsy latch, the kind a credit card could probably defeat in a movie. My wooden dowel was still wedged firmly in the track. It looked pathetic. A stick trying to stop a tidal wave. I tugged on the handle, hard. It didn't budge. For now. I pulled the heavy blackout curtains across the glass, shutting out the last of the city lights, plunging the room into an even deeper gloom. My safe space, my bright and airy open-plan apartment, was now a tomb of my own making. My bare feet padded across the hardwood floor to my small desk, tucked into a corner of the living room. It felt like walking through enemy territory. I sat down in my office chair, the familiar squeak of the casters making me jump. I had to think, I had to be logical. I mean, this was insane. Completely and utterly insane. Maybe Anna was wrong. Maybe her phone autocorrected. Maybe I was the one going crazy. Maybe the stress had finally broken something in my brain, and I was hallucinating all of it. A small, rational part of my mind desperately clung to that idea. I would almost have preferred to be crazy. Insanity was treatable. This felt terminal. I stared at my laptop screen. It was open to a half-finished work proposal I'd abandoned that morning. The cursor blinked at me. Blink, blink, blink. A steady, mocking rhythm. I tried to focus on the words, on the graphs and projections. I tried to force my world back into the neat, predictable columns of my job. But my eyes kept sliding away from the screen, drifting to the right, towards the huge picture window next to my desk. This one didn't have a balcony. It was just a massive pane of glass that overlooked the courtyard and the brick wall of the apartment building opposite mine. I had deliberately left these curtains open, a tiny act of rebellion against the fear. I didn't want to be completely sealed in. But now, I regretted it. The building opposite was dark, a grid of black squares. 1,000 unseen windows. Any one of them could be a pair of eyes. I kept thinking, how long has this been going on? How many times have I sat here, working late, completely oblivious, while someone watched me from across the way? Watched me sip my tea, watched me rub my tired eyes, watched me talk to Jasper, my cat. I looked around. Jasper was asleep on the arm of the sofa, a tight orange ball of fur. He was real. His collar was red. He was safe. The thought gave me no comfort. The video of the other Jasper, the one with the blue collar, played in my head. I had to get away from the window. I stood up, my chair rolling back and hitting the wall with a soft thud. I was about to go to the kitchen to make coffee, a pointless, mundane task to anchor myself to reality, when my phone, which I'd left on the desk, buzzed against the wood. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. I stared at the phone as if it were a venomous snake. Another message from Anna. A news alert? Or him? It? The other me? My mouth went dry. My heart wasn't just beating. It was slamming against my ribs. A trapped bird trying to break free. I couldn't make myself move. I just stood there, a few feet away, watching my phone. It buzzed again. A notification preview lit up the screen. I was too far away to read it, but I could see the familiar square logo. Instagram. A sound came out of my throat, a wet, choked, terrified noise. No, please, no. It was an act of pure, morbid compulsion. I had to know. I couldn't not know. I took 2 stiff, robotic steps forward and snatched the phone from the desk. My fingers were slick with sweat, and I fumbled the unlock pattern twice before the screen opened. The red notification bubble was waiting for me. Chloe_Hansen tagged you in a post. My thumb hovered over the notification. It was shaking so badly I could barely control it. This is it. This is the moment where it all comes apart. I took a breath that felt like I was inhaling sand, and I tapped it. The app opened. The post loaded. And the world fell out from under me. It was a photo. It was a photo of my desk. My desk. The one I was standing right next to. It was a photo of my white ceramic mug with a chip on the rim, a faint wisp of steam still rising from it. It was a photo of my laptop screen, open to the very same blank document I was staring at just moments ago, the cursor blinking in the exact same spot. It was a photo of my favorite pen lying next to the mousepad, and it was taken from outside. The angle was low, looking up slightly through the glass of my picture window. It was unmistakable. There were droplets of moisture on the outside of the glass, distorting the edges of the photo, a fine mist that hadn't been there an hour ago. It must have started to drizzle. I felt like I was going to be sick. My mind was screaming a high-pitched, silent shriek. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a deepfake. This wasn't a lucky guess. This was a photograph of my life, taken seconds ago, from a place that nobody should be. Then my eyes fell on the caption below the photo. 4 simple, devastating words. Working hard, I see. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a plastic clatter that seemed to echo in the dead silence. I stumbled back, my legs hitting the edge of my office chair, and I collapsed into it. My head was spinning. He's here. He's not online anymore. He's not in another state or another city. He's here. Outside my window. On the 4th floor. How? How is that possible? I was trying to make sense of it, trying to picture it. The sheer brick wall of the building. There were no ledges, no fire escape on this side. It was a straight drop to the concrete courtyard below. It was impossible. Unless he was in the apartment next door, leaning out his window at a suicidal angle, or on the roof, dangling from a rope. The logistics didn't matter. The terrifying, soul-crushing reality was that he had done it. He was there. He had a camera. And he had taken a picture of me. I was prey. The feeling was so absolute, so primal, that it cut through the panic. I was a goldfish in a bowl, and he was tapping on the glass. My eyes, wide with terror, darted back to the window. The window he was just outside of. My gaze swept across the dark glass, searching for a face, a shape, a shadow. Nothing. Just my own ghostly, horrified reflection staring back at me. Beyond it, the black grid of the opposite building. Empty. Silent. But I had to be sure. I don't know where the impulse came from. It wasn't bravery. It was a desperate primal need to see. To confirm. To face the monster. Moving like I was underwater, I pushed myself up from the chair. My legs felt like they were filled with concrete. I took one step, then another, until I was standing right in front of the giant pane of glass. My breath fogged a small patch in front of my face. My heart felt like it was going to explode. Slowly, I pressed my hands against the cool glass and leaned in, pressing my face close, trying to peer into the darkness. I scanned left. I scanned right. Nothing but empty air and dark brick. I craned my neck to look up, towards the roofline 4 stories above. Nothing but a black sky. He was gone. He must have taken the picture and vanished. A wave of something, not relief, but a lessening of the immediate, suffocating terror, washed over me. He was gone. Okay, he was gone. I was still alive. I was still locked in my apartment. My eyes drifted downwards then, following the sheer brick wall to the ground far below. I couldn't see the courtyard from this angle, only the small, decorative iron railing of my own useless Juliet balcony on the bedroom window to my left. And then I saw it. It wasn't on the brick wall. It wasn't in the courtyard. It was on the narrow concrete ledge right below my window, my living room window, the one I was staring out of. It wasn't a puddle from the rain. It was too perfect. It was the distinct, perfect, unmistakable outline of the tread of a shoe, a boot, by the looks of it. A single, wet footprint on the concrete. And as I stared at it, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing, I watched a tiny section of the heel print, the only part still dark with moisture, slowly, almost imperceptibly, evaporate into the night air. He hadn't been on the roof. He hadn't been in another apartment. He had been standing right there, on a 4-inch ledge, 4 stories up, just outside my window. And he had been there seconds ago. I couldn't move. My hands were still pressed flat against the cold glass of the window, my breath a ragged ghost in front of my face. My brain just refused to process it. The footprint. A single, wet footprint on a 4-inch concrete ledge, 4 stories off the ground. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It wasn't a picture or a text message. It was proof. Proof of a physical person defying the laws of physics, of safety, of everything I thought was solid and real. He was here. He had been standing right there, seconds ago. My mind started to race, trying to find a logical explanation, any explanation at all, to keep from shattering completely. A maintenance worker? No, not at this hour, not without a harness. A crazy daredevil? A new viral challenge? It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was that someone had been outside my window. My unlocked, very large window. A wave of nausea washed over me. I stumbled back from the glass, my legs like jelly, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I had to call someone. Not Anna, she'd just panic more. The police? What would I say? Someone left a footprint outside my window? They'd think I was crazy. The building management. That was it. They had security. My fingers were trembling so badly I could barely navigate my phone's screen. I found the number in my contacts under Building Management/Super and hit dial. It rang 3 times, each ring echoing in the cavernous silence of my apartment. Night security. This is Frank. The voice was gravelly, bored. Hi, Frank. My name is Lynn. I live in apartment 4B, I said, my own voice a reedy, pathetic thing. I think someone was just trying to get into my apartment. A heavy sigh on the other end. 4B. Did you hear a noise at your door? No, not the door. The window. My living room window. The window, ma'am? You're on the 4th floor. He said it like I was an idiot. I know what floor I'm on, I snapped, a spark of anger cutting through the fear. I saw something. There was a footprint. A wet one. On the ledge right outside. There was a long pause. I could hear the faint sound of a television in the background on his end. Probably watching a game in the lobby. Ma'am, with all due respect, there's no fire escape on that side of the building. It's a sheer wall. No one can get up there. But they did. I'm telling you, I saw it. My voice was rising, bordering on hysterical. It's drizzling out, Miss Tran, he said, his tone infuriatingly calm. Could have been a reflection of some water on the glass, maybe an old mark you just noticed. I can send someone up to walk the hallway if it'll make you feel better, but there's nothing we can do about the outside of the building. I knew it was pointless. He wasn't listening. He had already decided I was a hysterical woman overreacting to the rain. Fine, I whispered, my throat tight. Walk the hallway. Will do. You have a good night now. He hung up. I was alone. Completely and utterly alone. The one person whose job it was to provide security had just dismissed my terror as a trick of the light. I didn't turn on the lights. Light makes you a target. That was a primal, stupid thought, but it was the only one that made sense. I backed away from the window, keeping my eyes on it, and sank down onto the sofa in the middle of the room. My apartment, once my bright, airy sanctuary, was now a dark, terrifying cage. The familiar shapes of my furniture were just looming shadows. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapping my arms around them, trying to make myself a smaller target. Jasper, my cat, must have sensed my distress. He hopped off the arm of the chair and patted over, rubbing his orange fur against my leg, purring. I scooped him up, holding his warm, vibrating body against my chest like a shield. His presence was the only real thing in the room. I sat there in the dark for what felt like hours. I didn't know what to do. Every creak of the building, every distant siren sent a fresh jolt of fear through me. I imagined the security guard, Frank, doing a slow, cursory walk down my hallway, shaking his head, before returning to his TV. I was locked in. The deadbolt was thrown, the chain was on. But what did that matter if the monster could stand on a 4-inch ledge, 4 stories up? What good was a lock against someone who didn't follow the rules of the world? Maybe I was crazy. The thought kept circling back. Maybe the stress, the fake account, all of it had finally made something in my brain snap. Maybe there was no footprint. Maybe I was hallucinating. It was almost a comforting thought. At least if I was crazy, the threat wasn't real. My phone, clutched in my hand, buzzed. The vibration against my palm was so violent, it felt like an electric shock. I let out a choked gasp. Jasper jumped from my lap and darted under the coffee table. I stared down at the screen. It lit up the darkness, illuminating my own wide, terrified eyes in its reflection. Another notification. That same familiar, hated square logo. Chloe_Hansen tagged you in a post. No, not again. Please, God, no. My body was screaming at me to throw the phone, to smash it, to not look. But I couldn't. It was a compulsion. The not knowing was somehow worse than the knowing. With a thumb that felt disconnected from my body, a thumb that shook so badly I almost missed the button, I tapped on the notification. The app opened. The post loaded. And my world didn't just fall out from under me, it ceased to exist. It was a photo. It was a photo of me. It was me, right now, sitting on this sofa. My face was pale, caught in the ghoulish glow of my phone screen. My knees were pulled up to my chest. My mouth was slightly open in a silent scream. I could even see the dark fabric of my gray sweatshirt bunched up around my elbows. It was me, in this room, in this exact moment. But the angle, the perspective was all wrong. It wasn't from the window. It wasn't from the front door. It was taken from inside my apartment. From the deep, unlit corner of the room, over by the short hallway that led to my bedroom and bathroom. It was a place of total shadow, a void where I hadn't dared to look. He wasn't outside. He wasn't trying to get in. He was already here. My breath hitched. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My entire universe had shrunk to the horrifying image on the screen. He was in the room with me. He had been in the room with me this whole time, watching me, a predator in the shadows. And then my eyes, flicking wildly, saw the caption below the photo. 4 words that turned my blood to ice. Hide and seek is fun. As my brain processed those words, a sound broke the silence. It was a sound so small, so insignificant, that on any other night I wouldn't have noticed it. But tonight, it was a gunshot. A soft wooden creak. It came from the hallway, the same dark corner where the photo had been taken. He was moving. I couldn't scream. The sound was trapped in my throat. A solid ball of terror. My eyes were glued to the phone screen, to the picture of myself, a self that was about to die. A tiny, rational part of my brain screamed, "Run! Get out! Now!" But my limbs wouldn't obey. I was frozen. A statue of fear. Tick. The sound was sharp. Final. It came from the wall near the front door, where the circuit breaker panel was, and the world went black. Not the gloomy, shadow-filled darkness from before. This was absolute. Total. The kind of darkness that presses in on you, that suffocates you. The refrigerator hum died. The small digital clock on the microwave went out. Even my phone screen, my only connection to sight, flickered and died, its battery finally giving up, as if on cue. Silence. And darkness. I was blind. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild animal trying to escape. I held my breath, straining my ears, trying to hear over the roaring of blood in my head. And then I heard it. A soft shuffle. The sound of a socked foot on a hardwood floor. It was slow, deliberate, unhurried. Shuffle. Pause. Another one. Closer this time, coming out of the hallway. Shuffle. He wasn't rushing. He knew I was here. He knew I was trapped. This was a game to him. Hide and seek. And he was the seeker. I finally unfroze. Adrenaline, pure and potent, flooded my system. I couldn't see, but I knew the layout of my apartment by heart. The front door was too far. The window was a death trap. I slid off the sofa, landing silently on the rug, my bare feet making no sound. I started to crawl. I didn't know where I was going, just away from the sound. Away from the slow, methodical footsteps that were stalking me in the dark. Shuffle. Pause. He was in the main living area now. I could hear his slow, even breathing. Or maybe that was my own ragged breath, echoing in the dead air. I crawled faster, my hands sweeping in front of me, feeling for obstacles. My hand hit the leg of the coffee table. I recoiled, stifling a whimper. The shuffling stopped. The silence that followed was a physical thing. It was heavy, expectant. He had heard me. He knew where I was. I stayed completely still, my body flattened to the floor, my face pressed into the fibers of the rug. I prayed to a God I didn't believe in. Please, please, please. The silence stretched for an eternity. 1 second. 10. A minute. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he'd lost me in the dark. A flicker of insane hope ignited in my chest. Then the footsteps started again. But they weren't random anymore. They were coming right for me. No more shuffling. Just slow, steady, confident steps. Thud, thud, thud. Right towards the sofa. Right towards where he knew I was hiding. I squeezed my eyes shut. A useless gesture in the perfect blackness. This is it. This is how it ends. The footsteps stopped. They were close. So close I felt like I could feel the vibrations through the floor. They had stopped right on the other side of the sofa, just feet from where I was cowering. The silence returned, but this time it was different. It was the silence of a predator that has cornered its prey. The silence before the final strike. My entire body was shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down my face, silently soaking into the rug. I waited for the lunge, for the grab, for the end. Instead, I heard a whisper. It was a voice that was both chillingly alien and horrifically familiar. It was raspy, low, but it had the same cadence, the same pitch as my own. It was like hearing a distorted recording of myself. And it came from right beside my head, so close I could feel the faint, cold puff of air against my ear. Found you. That whisper wasn't a threat. It was a verdict. It was the sound of a closing door, the final click of a lock in a world I could no longer escape from. Found you. The two words, spoken in that distorted mockery of my own voice, didn't just touch my ear. They bypassed it, vibrating directly into my skull, into the primal core of my brain that knew only one thing. Predator. Prey. And something inside me, something that had been frozen solid for what felt like an eternity, shattered. It wasn't a conscious thought. It wasn't bravery. It was just an animal instinct, a spring, coiling and uncoiling in a single, violent motion. I didn't scream. I acted. I threw my entire body backward, a blind, desperate heave, pushing off the floor with my feet. My shoulder slammed into something solid and yet yielding, a leg, I think. There was a grunt of surprise, a sound of someone stumbling, and that was all I needed. The spell was broken. I scrambled on all fours, my hands and knees scraping against the hardwood. The darkness was absolute, a physical substance I had to push through. My apartment, a space I could navigate blindfolded on any other day, was now a hostile, alien landscape. My hands were my eyes, sweeping frantically in front of me. They hit the leg of the sofa, then the sharp corner of the coffee table. I hissed in pain but didn't stop. I couldn't. Behind me I heard a thud, then a swift, angry shuffle. He was back on his feet. He was coming. The bedroom. The thought exploded in my mind like a flashbulb. Not the bedroom itself, but what was through the bedroom. The window. The small, rickety balcony with the fire escape. The one Frank the security guard had so confidently dismissed. It wasn't on this side of the building, he'd said. He was wrong. It was my only way out. I lurched to my feet, using the wall for balance, and half ran, half stumbled toward the hallway. I didn't dare look back. I didn't need to. I could hear him. The soft, quick padding of socked feet on wood. He was faster than before. The game was over. The hunt had begun. My shoulder hit the doorframe of my bedroom. I cried out, a small, choked sound, and fumbled for the doorknob. My fingers were slick with sweat, slipping on the cool metal. For a terrible second, I thought it was locked. But then it turned. I threw the door open and lunged inside, not even bothering to close it behind me. It wouldn't stop him. Thump, thump, thump. His footsteps were in the hallway now, closer, more deliberate. My room was a cave of deeper shadows. The window was a faint, gray rectangle against the far wall. I scrambled towards it, tripping over a pile of clothes, my hands outstretched. I could hear his breathing now, just outside the bedroom door. A low, even sound. Unhurried. Confident. My fingers found the cold glass of the window pane. Then the latch. It was stiff, I yanked at it with all my strength, my fingernails scraping against the metal. It gave way with a loud click that seemed to echo in the dead air. I shoved the window up. A gust of cold, damp night air hit my face, smelling of rain and wet concrete. It was the smell of freedom. I didn't hesitate. I threw one leg over the sill, my jeans catching on the frame. I looked down. The fire escape was right there, a black metal grid just a foot below. It looked impossibly fragile. The streetlights from the avenue below cast a sickly orange glow, making the world seem unreal. A hand grabbed my ankle. It was impossibly strong, cold right through the fabric of my jeans. I shrieked, a raw, ragged sound torn from my lungs, and kicked backward with my other foot. I kicked at nothing, just air, but it was enough to make the grip falter for a split second. I yanked my leg free, tearing my jeans, and threw my entire body out of the window, landing with a painful clang on the metal platform. The cold of the iron shocked my system. I didn't look back into the dark rectangle of my window. I couldn't. I just turned and ran. My bare feet slipped on the wet rungs of the stairs. The whole structure shuddered and groaned under my weight. I gripped the icy handrail and flew down, taking the steps 2 or 3 at a time. Help! The word was a useless croak at first, but then it found its voice. Somebody, help me, please, help! I screamed the whole way down, my voice raw, echoing in the narrow space between the buildings. I didn't know if anyone could hear me. I didn't care. I just needed to make noise, to prove I was still here, still alive. I hit the landing of the second floor and risked a glance up. A dark shape was framed in my window. It wasn't moving, just watching. I reached the bottom, a small, grimy alleyway littered with trash bags. I didn't stop. I ran out onto the sidewalk, into the blessed, beautiful light of the street lamps. My lungs burned. My legs ached. And then I saw it. A miracle. A pair of headlights turning the corner, attached to a car with red and blue lights on its roof. A patrol car. I ran straight into the middle of the street, waving my arms like a maniac. Stop! Please! Stop! The car screeched to a halt just a few feet from me. 2 officers got out, their hands instinctively moving towards their belts. Ma'am? What's going on? Get out of the street! The words just tumbled out of me, a frantic, incoherent stream. My apartment. Someone's in my apartment. 4B. He was in there. He tried to... I couldn't finish. I just pointed a shaking finger back at the dark brick face of my building and burst into tears. My body finally succumbing to the violent shudders I'd been holding back. The next hour was a blur of scratchy blankets, bad coffee from a styrofoam cup, and the sterile, indifferent quiet of the local precinct. They had taken my statement, or at least tried to. I know I sounded crazy. A woman, barefoot, in a torn sweatshirt and ripped jeans, babbling about a dark figure, a whisper, and a social media account. I watched the younger officer, whose name I think was Chen, type my story into his computer, his expression a careful mask of professional neutrality. His partner, a weary-looking older man named Miller, was the one who had stayed with me. We sent a unit to clear your apartment, Miss Tran, he said, his voice gentle but firm. 2 officers went through it top to bottom. They just radioed in. He paused, looking at a notepad. There was no one there. No, that's impossible, I whispered, shaking my head. He was there. I know he was. In the dark. The door was deadbolted and chained from the inside when they got there, Lynn, he said, using my first name like I was a child. The only way in was for the building manager to unlock it. There were no signs of forced entry on any of the windows, including the one you left from. Nothing was taken. Nothing was out of place. My mind reeled. The deadbolt was thrown? The chain was on? But I hadn't relocked it when I come home earlier. I never did until I was going to bed. And I certainly hadn't locked it after he was already inside. It didn't make sense. None of it did. I'm not lying, I said, my voice small. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I'm not saying you're lying, Miller said, sighing. But the facts on the ground don't match up. We're going to check the building's security cameras, see who came and went tonight. Maybe that'll clear things up. It felt like another dismissal. Another Frank at the security desk telling me I was seeing things. I just nodded, pulling the thin blanket tighter around my shoulders, and stared at the linoleum floor. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe the stress had finally broken me. It was the only explanation that fit the facts they were presenting. About 30 minutes later, Officer Miller came back. His face was different. The weary professionalism was gone, replaced by a look of deep, profound confusion. He held a tablet in his hand. "Lynn," he said, his voice strained. "You need to see this." He sat down next to me and turned the tablet so I could see the screen. It was security footage, time-stamped from earlier that evening, around 6:15 p.m. The camera was aimed at the main entrance of my building. "Okay," he said, tapping the screen. "This is you, right? Leaving the building to go to the gym, you said." I watched a figure on the screen. It was me. My gray sweatshirt, my dark jeans, the white sneakers I always wore. I remembered that moment. I'd been debating whether it was too cold to go out. I saw myself push through the glass doors and turn right, out of frame. "Okay," I said, my voice trembling. "That's me." "Right. Now watch this." He skipped the footage forward. The timestamp now reads 6:19 p.m. Just 4 minutes later. This is from the same camera. I watched the glass doors swing open again, and my blood went cold. A person walked in. A woman. She was wearing my gray sweatshirt. She was wearing my dark jeans. She was wearing my white sneakers. Her hair was pulled back exactly like mine. She walked with my posture, my gait. That slight lean to the left I've had since a childhood ankle injury. She walked to the inner security door, and I watched in horror as she reached into the pocket of her jeans, my jeans, and pulled out a keychain. It was my keychain, the one with the silly little silver cat charm Anna had given me for my birthday. She swiped the key fob. The light turned green. She pulled out a key, unlocked the inner door, and walked through, cool and calm, as if she'd done it 1,000 times, as if she lived there. Who is that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Miller stared at me, his eyes wide. "That's what I was going to ask you. She used your key, Lynn. That's not a copy. Forensics can tell. The building manager confirmed it's the one registered to your unit." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the frozen image on the screen. The image of a perfect copy of me, letting herself into my home. My safe space. The monster wasn't a stalker trying to get in. The monster had a key. The monster had my face. A new kind of terror, colder and deeper than anything I'd felt in the apartment, began to seep into my bones. This wasn't about a break-in. This wasn't about an attack. This was about something else entirely. My phone, which an officer had retrieved from the floor of my living room, was sitting on the table in front of me. Its screen was cracked, but it was on. My hand moved on its own, a slow, robotic motion. I picked it up. My thumb hovered over the social media icon, the one that had been the source of all this. I had to know. I tapped it open. My feed loaded. The first thing I noticed was that the other account, the fake one, Lynn_official, was gone. A search for it yielded no results. A wave of impossible relief washed over me. It's over. Maybe it was some elaborate, cruel prank. Maybe it's finally over. But then my eyes fell on my own profile picture at the top of the feed. My real account. There was a fresh blue circle around it, indicating a new post. A post made just a few minutes ago. While I was sitting here, my heart hammered against my ribs. My thumb, shaking so badly I could barely control it, tapped my profile picture. The new post loaded. It was a selfie. It was taken inside my apartment, my living room. The lighting was warm and cozy. The person in the photo was smiling, a bright, genuine, happy smile. My head was tilted just so. And snuggled up against her cheek, purring contentedly, was Jasper. My cat, who hid from strangers, was rubbing his orange fur against the cheek of this thing. The thing that looked exactly like me. And below the photo, the final, world-ending caption. Finally, some peace and quiet. Time to tidy up.